Sunlight filtered through the ceiling-high windows of the Wells estate, casting golden rectangles across the marble floor. 8-year-old Penelope Wells sat cross-legged on her bedroom carpet, surrounded by toys that had long lost their appeal. Outside, spring had painted the world in vibrant colors, a stark contrast to the monochromatic perfection of her home. "Miss Penelope," called Eleanor, the family's head housekeeper, "your parents are in the main hall." Penelope's heart quickened. She'd been waiting all week for this moment. Brushing down her dress, she practiced her request one more time in the mirror before racing downstairs. Harrison Wells stood in the foyer, his imposing figure clad in a tailored suit despite it being Saturday. Beside him, Olivia Wells checked her reflection in a compact mirror, her outfit likely worth more than what most people earned in months. "There you are, Penny," Olivia said, tucking away her compact. "We'll be gone for the day. The charity gala runs late, so don't wait up." Penelope twisted the fabric of her dress between her fingers. "Actually, I was wondering, could I come with you?" Harrison glanced at his watch. "The gala isn't for children." "Penelope, not to the gala," Penelope said quickly. "But maybe before? There's this park near the river, the one with the carousel and duck pond. You could go there first, just for a little while." A moment of silence hung in the air. Olivia's eyes softened slightly, but she looked to Harrison for the final word. "I saw pictures of it in a magazine," Penelope continued, words tumbling out now. "They say it's the most beautiful park in the city, and the ducks have babies this time of year." And Penelope, Harrison interrupted, his voice measured. "We don't have time for parks today." "But we never have time," Penelope whispered. "Just 1 hour, please." The request hung in the air like a delicate bubble. Outside, the family driver honked discreetly, signaling the car was ready. "You have everything you could possibly want here." Harrison gestured around the mansion. "There's the indoor pool, the theater room, the game room, ... But I want to go outside." "Few and Mom," Penelope said, tears threatening to spill. "Just once, like other families." "Ow!" Olivia touched Harrison's arm. "Perhaps we could spare an hour, dear. The Mitchells won't arrive until we've discussed this." Harrison cut her off. "Our schedule is set." Penelope felt the familiar weight of disappointment settle in her chest. But today, something inside her refused to accept the usual dismissal. Perhaps it was the magazine article about family bonding, or the stories her classmate Zoe told about weekend adventures with her parents. "Please, Dad," she begged, her voice cracking. "I just want one day where we do something together. Just one memory of us at a park, not asking for anything expensive." A strange expression crossed Harrison's face, something Penelope had never seen before. She hoped for one brilliant moment that she had finally broken through. Harrison Wells. Face darkened, the line of his jaw tightening beneath perfectly trimmed stubble. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Enough," he said, his voice low, but sharp enough to slice through the air. "This constant neediness has to stop, Penelope. Do you have any idea what it takes to maintain all this?" Gestured broadly around them. "The empire that provides everything you could possibly want." Penelope took a step back, her small shoulders hunching as if to shield herself from his words. "Harrison," Olivia murmured, placing a manicured hand on his arm. "Perhaps we should know," he said, shrugging off her touch. "She needs to understand. The world doesn't stop because an 8-year-old wants to feed ducks. There are obligations, responsibilities, meetings worth millions that can't be rescheduled. For carousel rides." The tears that had threatened now spilled freely down Penelope's cheeks. But instead of softening her father's resolve, they seemed to irritate him further. "And now the waterworks," he scoffed. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Olivia. We're raising her to be soft, entitled." "I'm not entitled," Penelope whispered, the unfamiliar word stinging like an accusation. "I just wanted—" "You wanted to disrupt our entire day on a whim," Harrison snapped. "That's the definition of entitled, Penelope. In the real world, people don't drop everything because someone is crying." The driver honked again, more insistently this time. "We're going to be late," Harrison said, checking his watch again. "Eleanor will make you lunch. We'll be back tonight." Penelope stood frozen, her small hands balled into fists at her sides. Something inside her, something that had been bending for years, finally broke. "You don't care about me at all?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the cavernous foyer. "You care about your stupid meetings and your stupid money and nothing else?" Harrison turned back, his eyes flashing dangerously. "Go to your room now." "No." Penelope stamped her foot, surprising even herself with her defiance. "Other dads play with their kids. Other dads take their daughters to parks. You're the worst dad ever." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the grandfather clock in the corner seemed to hold its breath. When Harrison spoke again, his voice was terrifyingly calm. "You have no idea how fortunate you are, Penelope. There are children who would give anything to have what you have. Your ingratitude is disappointing." He turned to Eleanor, who had been hovering anxiously at the edge of the confrontation. "She's to remain in her room until we return. No devices, no television. Perhaps some time to reflect on her behavior will help her appreciate what she has." Olivia hesitated, conflict evident in her expression. "Harrison, maybe we're being too. We'll discuss this later," he said with finality, already striding toward the door. Penelope watched through tears as her mother gave her an apologetic glance before following her father. The massive front door closed with a sound like a tomb being sealed. Eleanor approached cautiously, her kind face creased with concern. "Come along, Miss Penelope. Let's get you upstairs." But Penelope couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The beautiful day outside now seemed to mock her through the windows. She felt something important shatter inside her chest. Not just disappointment, but a fundamental understanding about her place in her father's world. 3 days passed like ghosts through the Wells mansion. Penelope moved through her routines mechanically: breakfast at 7, lessons with her private tutor until noon, lunch in the solarium, piano practice, then free time that felt anything but free. The silence between her and her father had solidified into something tangible, an invisible wall that divided the household. Harrison had released her from her room confinement the morning after the incident, but hadn't spoken directly to her since. Left earlier for the office, returned later. When their paths did cross, he would nod curtly or address Eleanor about Penelope's needs as if she weren't standing right there. Olivia attempted to bridge the gap with awkward conversation and excessive gifts. A new doll appeared on Penelope's bed Monday afternoon. Tuesday brought an elaborate dollhouse. Wednesday, a custom-designed bicycle stood in the hallway outside her room. Pristine, untouched, and utterly meaningless. "Do you like your new bicycle, Miss Penelope?" Eleanor asked as she arranged Penelope's lunch: cucumber sandwiches cut into perfect triangles. Just as she preferred, Penelope pushed a triangle around her plate. "It's nice," she said flatly. Eleanor sat down beside her, something she rarely. "Did your mother pick it out herself? Called the shop 3 times to make sure they got the color right?" "But Dad still hates me," Penelope whispered. Eleanor's weathered hand covered Penelope's small one. "Your father doesn't hate you, child. He doesn't know how to be any different than he is. Why not? Other dads know how." Eleanor sighed. "Some people, especially those who've worked very hard for what they have, forget that the most precious things can't be earned or bought. Your father came from nothing. Did you know that?" Penelope looked up, surprised. Her father, the great Harrison Wells, had always seemed to her like someone born into his power, like a king from her storybooks. "His own father left when he was younger than you," Eleanor continued. "His mother worked 3 jobs. There were no parks for him, no carousel rides. By 12, he was working after school. By 16, he had his first business." Penelope tried to imagine her father as a boy, hungry, determined, alone. The image wouldn't form clearly. "That doesn't mean he should be mean to me," she said finally. "It doesn't," Eleanor agreed. "But sometimes people protect themselves from the things they never had by pretending they don't matter." Later that evening, Penelope sat at her bedroom window, watching the garden below. Her mother was there, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing emphatically. Even from this distance, Penelope could tell she was upset. When Olivia turned, Penelope could see tears on her cheeks. Down the hall, she heard her father's office door open, then his heavy footsteps. Instead of heading toward the master bedroom, They paused outside Penelope's door. For a moment, she thought he might knock. She held her breath, waiting. The seconds stretched into a full minute before the footsteps continued down the hall. That night, for the first time in years, Penelope heard her parents arguing. Their voices carried through the mansion's ventilation system, fragmented but clear enough. Asterisk. She's a child, Harrison, and will not be manipulated by tantrums. ... Bark. This isn't about the park anymore. ... My father never gave me ... double quotes, and is that what you want for her? The last question hung in the air unanswered. Penelope pulled her blanket over her head but couldn't block out the terrible thought forming in her mind. What if she had broken her family forever? Asterisk. On Thursday morning, Harrison's usual seat at the breakfast table remained empty. Olivia informed Penelope that her father had left for a business trip to Tokyo 3 days earlier than planned. Will he be back for my recital? Penelope asked quietly, referring to her piano performance scheduled for the following week. Olivia's hesitation was answer enough. He'll try, darling. The Nakamura deal is very important. Important. Everything in Harrison Wells' life was important, except it seemed his daughter's small request for his time that afternoon. Instead of her usual mathematics lesson, Penelope found her tutor replaced by Dr. Miranda Fontaine, a woman with kind eyes and a notebook who asked questions about how Penelope felt when her father got angry. I'm not crazy, Penelope said flatly after 20 minutes of this. You can tell my parents they don't need to fix me. Dr. Fontaine smiled. No one thinks you're crazy, Penelope. And I'm not here to fix you. Sometimes families just need help understanding each other better. Then why isn't my dad here? Penelope challenged. The question hung in the air unanswered. But something in Dr. Fontaine's expression told Penelope everything she needed to know. Later that evening, unable to sleep, Penelope wandered to her father's. A FISA forbidden territory she rarely entered. The massive desk dominated the room, polished mahogany gleaming in the moonlight streaming through the windows. She climbed into his leather chair, spinning slowly. A silver frame on the desk caught her attention, a photograph she'd never seen before. In it, a much younger Harrison stood beside a thin woman with tired eyes and a determined smile. His mother, Penelope realized. Between them stood a boy of about 10, solemn-faced but with unmistakable pride in his posture. That's your uncle. Thomas, came Olivia's voice from the doorway. Your father's brother. Penelope jumped, guilty at being caught. I didn't know Dad had a brother. Olivia entered the room, her silk robe whispering across the carpet. They haven't spoken in almost 20 years. Why not? Olivia sat on the edge of the desk, gently taking the frame from Penelope. Differences. That became too big to overcome. Your grandmother died while they were still fighting. Neither has forgiven himself for the other. The revelation settled over Penelope like a heavy blanket. Is that going to happen to us? Will Dad stop talking? To me? Forever? No, Olivia said firmly, setting the photo down. Because we're going to make sure history doesn't repeat itself. She pulled an envelope from her pocket.
Oh.
Your father left this for you before he departed. He asked me to give it to you tonight. Penelope took the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of Harrison's personal stationery, his precise handwriting covering half the page. Penelope, words have never come easily to me, especially words of apology. My reaction to your request was unworthy of you and of the father I should be. Dr. Fontaine tells me that children your age need more than provision, they need presence. This is a language I am still learning to speak. I have arranged to return. From Tokyo on Thursday, next week, 1 day before your recital, the Nakamura deal will proceed without me for its conclusion. When I return, if you are still willing, I would be honored to accompany you to the park by the river, with love and regret. Your father. Penelope read the note 3 times, her heart pounding against her ribs. Is this real? She whispered. Olivia nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Your father is many things, Penelope, but he has never been a liar. That night, for the first time in days, Penelope slept without nightmares. The week passed with excruciating slowness. Penelope practiced her recital piece until her fingers ached. Channeling all her nervous energy into Chopin's Nocturne, Dr. Fontaine visited twice more, helping Penelope articulate her feelings and prepare for her father's return. What if he changes his mind? Penelope asked during their final session. People rarely change overnight, Dr. Fontaine acknowledged, but recognizing the need for change is the most important step. Your father has taken that step. Thursday arrived. With perfect weather sunshine warming the air to an ideal spring temperature, light breezes carrying the scent of blossoms from the garden. Penelope waited in the foyer, her heart leaping at every sound that might be her father's car. When Harrison finally walked through the door at 4:37 p.m., Penelope barely recognized him. Gone was the pristine suit, replaced by dark jeans and a simple, button-down shirt. His usual slick-back hair fell slightly looser around his face. Most shocking of all was the tentative smile he offered, an expression so rare on his features that it transformed him completely. "Hello, Penelope," he said, his voice gentler than she could ever remember hearing it. She stood frozen, suddenly. Shy, "Hi, Dad." An awkward silence stretched between them until Harrison cleared his throat. "Your mother tells me you've been practicing diligently for tomorrow's recital." Penelope nodded. "Dr. Fontaine said I should channel my feelings into the music." Something flashed across Harrison's face. Recognition. "I'd like to hear you play, if that's all right. Before the recital, just for me." The request was so unexpected that Penelope could only nod again. She led the way to the music room, settling at the grand piano, while her father took a seat nearby. For a moment, her fingers hovered uncertainly over the keys. Then, closing her eyes, she began to play. The nocturne filled the room, her small hands coaxing emotion from the instrument that belied her years. When the final note faded, she opened her eyes to find her father watching her with an expression she'd never seen before: wonder, and something that might have been pride. "That was beautiful," he said simply. The next day, after the recital, which Harrison attended in the front row, applauding longer and louder than anyone, he kept his promise. The Wells family car pulled up to the gates of Riverside Park at precisely 2 p.m. Harrison dismissed the driver, instructing him to return in 2 hours. 2 whole hours. Penelope breathed, hardly believing it. "Unless you'd prefer more," Harrison replied, offering his hand. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. To Penelope, they fed the ducks by the pond. Her father listening intently as she shared facts about mallards she'd learned from her science tutor. They rode the carousel 3 times. Harrison awkwardly perched on a painted horse beside hers. Cream on a park bench. Penelope giggling as her sophisticated father struggled with a dripping cone. As the afternoon waned, they stood by the river, watching boats pass. Harrison placed a hesitant hand on Penelope's shoulder. "I've been thinking about what you said," he admitted. "About other fathers? You were right." Penelope looked up at him, surprised. "I convinced myself that providing for you was enough. He continued, that giving you every advantage, every opportunity, would make you happy. I told myself I was doing better than my father had done for me." He paused, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "But in some ways, I was making the same mistakes." "You're not the worst dad ever," Penelope whispered. "I shouldn't have said that." Harrison's laugh was soft and sad. "Perhaps not the worst, but certainly not the father you deserve." He knelt down to her level, something he'd never done before. "I can't promise I'll change overnight. I'll still work too much. I'll still make mistakes. But I promise I will try to be present, not just providing." Penelope threw her arms around his neck.
"Oh."
Breathing in the unfamiliar scent of her father cologne, mingled with fresh air and ice cream. After a moment's hesitation, his arms encircled her, holding her close. "Can we come back next week?" she asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Yes," Harrison said, and for the first time in her young life, Penelope knew without doubt that her father meant what he said. "Next week, and the week after that, for as long as you want." As they walked hand in hand toward the park exit, Penelope realized that her father, the great Harrison Wells, titan of industry, master of empires, was smiling. Not the practiced smile he wore for photographers or business partners, but something real and imperfect and precious. Beyond the gates of Riverside Park, the world waited with all its demands and complications, but something fundamental had shifted, a course corrected before it was too late. The park would remain their sanctuary, a place where a father learned to speak his daughter's language, and a daughter glimpsed the boy her father had once been. Some journeys begin with a single step. Others had begun with a simple request for a day at the park and an unexpected reaction that had threatened to break them, for ultimately beginning to heal them instead. Asterisk.